Okay, let's unpack this. If you are operating in, say, a really competitive, local niche think, high-end dentists, maybe specialized contractors, tough legal services, yeah, you already know it's a battle out there for local SEO.
Oh,
But you're
absolutely.
likely using sophisticated tools already, maybe something like GMB Crush, to generate those crucial GeoGrid scans.
Exactly. Those GeoGrid scans are, well, they're pretty much essential now. They move us past just guessing.
Right.
They give you that visual objective map,
Yeah.
shows your Google business profile, your GBP ranking positions. We call them the pins
Yep, the pins.
for your main keywords across a very specific area.
And the immediate frustration, and I know listeners feel this, is when you look at that grid, all color-coded, and you see just huge patches of yellow or gray or even red,
Not green?
not green, which means you are not in those top 3 spots, where all the actual clicks are happening.
That's the money zone.
We know the scan is the diagnosis, but the big question for every local SEO really is, what do you actually do about those underperforming pins?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the underperformance, it's almost never just about lacking like a blog post. It's usually a structural mismatch.
Structural mismatch. Okay.
The fundamental goal really is to stop treating the physical geography, where Google ranks you and your website's architecture, as two separate things.
Ah, okay.
That's the real challenge, especially, like you said, maybe you inherit a new client site or you're trying to rank in areas you don't know that well geographically.
Unfamiliar territory.
So it raises this really important question. How do we technically map those kind of invisible city zones, the exact spots where those weak pins are, onto a part of our website that Google can actually use and understand?
Because that's the silent killer, isn't it? You see, okay, pin 17 is ranking 7th, but you don't actually know which specific neighborhood or like microzone that pin is.
Exactly. You have no idea.
You might be targeting North Hollywood, right? But pin 17 could be, I don't know, a 2-block radius around some specific intersection, Burbank and Vineland, maybe? A zone you've never even mentioned on your site?
That's precisely it. Google's using dynamic proximity. It often ignores the neat lines we draw for neighborhoods or city limits.
Right.
And the strategy that works, the one that, say, 1% of performers have figured out, basically reverse engineered, is this structural imperative.
Okay, what is it?
You must create a dedicated, unique location page for each of those critical pin locations, right within your site structure.
Each pin gets a page. Wow.
Each underperforming pin that matters strategically. And crucially, that page needs the right content, the exact technical stuff, to optimize both the site for relevance and the GBP for proximity at the same time.
Okay, so the GeoGrid scan essentially gives us the coordinates of failure.
Yeah, you could put it that way.
And we have to build like a custom landing strip, that location page, right where that failure is actually. Let's dig into that structural mismatch idea a bit more, though. If I have a pretty good location page for Plumber Chicago, why doesn't Google just sort of spread that authority out to all those weak pins nearby in the suburbs?
Yeah, good question. It's because of the competition, mainly, and just how specific Google's algorithms have become.
Yeah.
When you're up against hundreds of other businesses, a general Chicago page, it's just too broad. It doesn't convince Google you're the most relevant authority for that tiny 2-block radius of pin 17.
Not specific enough.
Not nearly specific enough. And what's fascinating here is that the high performers, they get this. They understand that a weak pin usually signals a gap, a structural and content void on their website.
So Google's looking for a page for that specific spot.
It is. And if Google's ranking system can't find a page that shouts relevance and authority for that hyperlocal zone, you simply won't rank there. End of story.
So the top players, they didn't just guess like 50 surrounding neighborhoods to make pages for.
No, not at all.
They used the GeoGrid pin data itself to dictate the exact architecture their site needed.
That's the pivot point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this need, this requirement for hyper-specific structural creation, well, that's what led to frameworks like the 7 Figures location stack.
Okay, I've heard of this.
Right. It's basically a derived, proven framework designed specifically to solve this exact problem.
Yeah.
Translating those kind of vague GeoGrid pins into actual optimized structural location pages on your site.
So it closes the gap.
It closes that technical gap, the gap between where Google thinks you should rank based on proximity and where your website actually says you're relevant.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
Which brings us to implementation. How do we actually do this? How do we take an existing site, or maybe a brand new one, and restructure it effectively, maybe even automatically, to mirror that necessary GeoGrid coverage.
Right, the how.
We've seen sources describing these highly automated analysis tools, sometimes referred to conceptually as like a GeoGrid GPT, that outlines how the top competitors achieve this local domination. They basically reverse engineer the data.
It's about leveraging that performance data, your own failures, essentially, to instantly generate the strategic roadmap.
Right.
So instead of a consultant spending weeks, manually comparing maps and ranking data,
Tedious work.
very tedious, you just feed the system the precise data points that actually matter, and it spits out an optimization blueprint that aligns with what we see working in high-performing site architectures.
Okay, and what inputs does this kind of analysis need? It sounds complex, but our sources suggest it's surprisingly minimal.
It really is. For the output you get, you basically need three things.
Okay.
First, that GeoGrid screenshot itself, the one showing your current, maybe painful, ranking map.
Got it. The diagnosis.
Second, your site map, or even just your main domain URL was often enough, so the system knows what structure you're starting with.
What you have now.
And third, just a couple of your main service plus location keywords. Plumber Chicago, dentist North Hollywood, just to define the scope.
And that's it.
That's generally the core input. The power here is that it moves way beyond just a basic manual audit. It focuses on creating a truly custom, local domination roadmap.
Wow.
By analyzing your existing structure, identifying the exact geographic points where those pins are failing, and then defining the specific page needed to intercept that ranking zone, you're letting the failure data design the success architecture.
Okay, this sounds incredible, but I do have a major concern. I'm sure some knowledgeable listeners are thinking this too.
Go for it.
If we start creating potentially, I don't know, dozens, maybe even hundreds of these hyper-specific location pages just to catch a single GeoGrid pin, aren't we running the risk of generating thin, low-value doorway pages? Isn't that a classic SEO no-no?
That is the critical question, and it's precisely why the strategy has to be structural, not just about volume.
Yeah.
The tool or the framework isn't just saying make more pages. It's identifying the exact missing pages that require unique authority signals.
Right, not just duplicates.
No, and the answer lies in the detail of the blueprint it generates. That blueprint ensures the pages are structurally unique from the start. And it dictates the second crucial phase, the content strategy for those pages, making sure they're not sent.
Okay, so let's look at that blueprint then. What does it actually output? What makes it actionable?
The output is extremely precise, makes it very actionable. First, the system identifies missing cities, villages, or specific micro-locations. Your current site structure just doesn't cover it all.
Gaps.
Big gaps sometimes. Second, and this is key for immediate action, it provides precise pinned location mapping for those weak ranking zones from the scan.
So it tells you where pin 17 actually is.
Exactly. It gives you a name, maybe a physical address reference, or a defining intersection for those failing pins. Finally, you know where to target.
That's huge.
And third, it recommends a rewritten URL structure designed to dominate, based entirely on those GeoGrid results. It ensures every single underperforming pin gets a dedicated, optimized URL pathway towards visibility.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, because the system doesn't just hand you a list of URLs to create, right?
No, much more than that.
It translates directly into website action, the actual content strategy for those new pages. The sources say the system often builds a full location page stack that's described as being AI ready. Now, for someone who actually has to build this stuff out, what does AI ready mean in practical terms? Like, what's the tangible structure?
Yeah, AI ready basically means we're ensuring these pages satisfy not just human users, but also Google's machine reading capabilities. Think EEAT, local relevance signals.
Okay, so technical stuff.
Technical, but crucial. It implies a highly standardized, optimized structure for each page. Think specific JSON LD schema applied consistently.
Like local business schema.
Local business schema, definitely. Service area schema, too, specifically referencing the microzone, that pin location we just identified.
Gotcha. So it's about making sure the page is fundamentally the right type of page for the algorithm to understand immediately.
Precisely. It also dictates things like the H1 and H2 structure. The H1 needs to be hyper-specific. Water heater repair in Northridge, CA. Not just water heater repair.
Super targeted.
Super targeted. And the supporting H2s. They need to be structured placeholders for highly localized content. Sections for testimonials pulled only from that microzone. Locally relevant images. specific paragraphs addressing common issues maybe unique to that little neighborhood.
Right.
This structured framework ensures that when you do add the content, it's high value, it's unique, and it directly addresses your earlier concern about creating thin pages.
Okay, that makes sense. And tied into this, I think, is the concept of clustering services for a, quote, geodensity boost.
Yes, crucial concept.
We've defined the location page, but why is clustering services like taking your main service, plumbing, and breaking it down into drain cleaning, water heaters, why is that so important specifically for this hyper-local strategy?
Right. So clustering services within the context of that specific location page. That's the mechanism that turns a simple location page into a real localized topical authority hub.
Okay.
Let's use your Northridge example again. If your single page for that Northridge GeoGrid pin just broadly says plumbing services, well, your authority signal is pretty diluted for any specific need.
Right, too general.
But if we cluster, if that Northridge page includes dedicated clustered content blocks specifically for Northridge water heater repair and Northridge drain cleaning and Northridge pipe replacement.
I see.
Now you're creating a high internal link density and real topical depth targeted exclusively to that Northridge microzone. Google reads that page not as just some general landing spot, but as a deep, comprehensive authority for all relevant plumbing services within Northridge.
Yeah, you're essentially building a mini-focused website vertical just for that specific geographical pin.
That's a great way to put it, a mini vertical for that pin. And this dramatically increases what we call your geodensity score.
Geodensity?
Which basically tells Google that for that one specific pin location, you are the most comprehensive, most relevant option available, hands down.
Okay.
And if we connect this all back to the bigger picture, this whole strategy ensures that every single area of a city that's identified by a weak GeoGrid pin gets properly addressed on your website through a structurally unique, content-rich page.
Right.
You're systematically turning every liability on your GeoGrid map into a major asset on your actual website structure.
So what does this all mean? Let's try and summarize. The major takeaway seems crystal clear. Getting into those top 3 ranking spots where you need to be requires translating that abstract data from your GeoGrid, scan those pins, into concrete, real, dedicated location pages.
That's the core of it.
For the specific, sometimes previously unknown geographic areas they represent. The strategy for local domination isn't just about writing more content in isolation. It's deeply technical. It's structural optimization.
Absolutely.
You have to use the GeoGrid performance data, the good and the bad, to dictate your site's actual physical map online. And that optimizes both your site's authority and your Google Business Profile's proximity signals together.
Couldn't say it better myself.
Yeah.
We've really established how these advanced frameworks can analyze those performance gaps and pretty much instantly help restructure a site for domination. You're moving from guesswork to actual engineering.
Right.
So the challenge for you, the listener, right now, is to think about the specific geographic areas where you know you're currently underperforming. Look at your scan. Find your weakest pin. Maybe it's pin 28, maybe pin 42, whatever it is. Ask yourself, what URL structure, what page on my site is currently supporting that specific microzone? Is there one at all?
Probably not a dedicated one.
Probably not. And then think, how quickly could creating a dedicated optimized location page stack using these principles just for that single failure point, how quickly could that transform your local visibility and shift that pin right into a top 3 ranking? That's the structural gap you need to find and close